You know, during the Cold War, one of the greatest scientific discoveries of the space age was immediately pulled into a top-secret military project. This is one of those hidden stories about how humanity found a brand new part of our world and then, almost instantly, tried to turn it into a weapon. So let's dive in and uncover the secrets of the Van Allen belts.
Okay, so let's set the scene. It's the years right after World War II. The very same rocket technology that had been a terrifying weapon was now being repurposed for science. These are captured German V-2s, and they were carrying instruments right to the edge of space, launching all of us into this incredible new era of exploration.
Now, we all know the story of the space race, right? The race to the moon. But was that the only race being run? What if there was another, much more secret competition happening at the exact same time? One that wasn't about planting a flag on some other world, but about controlling the very space right above our heads.
To really get this story, you have to start with the man who was right at the center of it all, James Van Allen, a brilliant physicist who would find himself at this wild intersection of pure science and secret warfare.
So this is James Van Allen, and he was a true prodigy, an expert on Earth's magnetic fields from way back in his college days. But, and this is key, he also had this very practical military background. During the war, he designed these incredibly rugged proximity fuses for the Navy. We're talking about making electronics tough enough to be fired out of a cannon. This dual expertise in both geophysics and military hardware made him the absolute perfect person for what was about to happen.
Van Allen's big moment was supposed to come during the International Geophysical Year, this massive global scientific effort to study the Earth. But it would end up taking a national crisis, a moment of just profound shock and humiliation for the United States, to finally get his experiment into orbit.
And that crisis was Sputnik. October 1957, the Soviet Union launches it, and America just panicked. The official U.S. program, Vanguard, had failed spectacularly on the launch pad. So in this mad scramble to catch up, the nation turned to the Army Ballistic Missile Agency. They launched Explorer-1 just a few months later, and on board, Van Allen's hastily adapted instrument package. So what did he find? Well, at first, the data was just baffling. His Geiger counter was getting completely swamped, just going off the charts at certain altitudes. The team eventually realized the instrument wasn't broken. No, it was encountering radiation thousands of times more intense than anyone expected. They had discovered two massive donut-shaped rings of charged particles trapped by Earth's magnetic field. This was the very first major scientific discovery of the space age.
And this picture right here? It just perfectly captures the feeling at the time. You've got Van Allen in the middle, flanked by William Pickering from JPL and the famous Wernher von Braun from the Army's rocket team. This was a moment of pure triumph, a huge boost to American pride right in the heat of the Cold War. And listen to this, Van Allen himself totally captured the mood. He said they felt like they were rescuing the nation's honor after the humiliation of Vanguard. You see, it wasn't just science for them. It felt like a victory in a massive global ideological struggle.
Okay, but here's where the story takes this really sharp and very secret turn. The exact same discovery that was being celebrated on the front pages of newspapers all over the world was already being weaponized in the shadows. And this is the crucial point. Get this. On May 1st, 1958, the very same day Van Allen stood before the National Academy of Sciences and announced the discovery of the radiation belts, he also agreed to join a top-secret military project to detonate nuclear bombs inside them. And, in his own words, he was keen and eager to do it.
The project was called Argus. And what was the goal? To test this wild theory called the Christophilus effect. The basic idea was that a nuclear explosion high above the Earth could create a man-made radiation belt, a kind of shield that could potentially disrupt enemy communications or maybe even destroy incoming ballistic missiles. And this is how the theory was supposed to work. It's kind of wild. You detonate a bomb, and the energized electrons, the debris, get trapped by the Earth's magnetic field. Then, they spiral along these invisible lines of force, creating a massive electrical current that could stretch across an entire hemisphere, potentially frying electronics half a world away. A truly planetary-scale weapon. And man, they did not waste any time. In 1958, you had Operation Hardtack, including a massive 3.8 megaton blast that blacked out radio as far away as Australia. Then came the three smaller Argus shots, secretly monitored by Van Allen's instruments on the Explorer 4 satellite. But the biggest test, that was still to come.
Then, in 1962, the U.S. detonated a 1.4 megaton hydrogen bomb 240 miles above the Pacific. This was Starfish Prime, and it was nearly 1,000 times more powerful than the Argus bombs. In Hawaii, 700 miles away, it knocked out streetlights and set off burglar alarms.
So, did it work? Well, from a military perspective, it was pretty much a failure. But the tests did have a very real and very damaging consequence. They created this powerful artificial radiation belt that nobody knew how to get rid of. They basically left a permanent scar on the near-Earth environment.
And you can bet the international scientific community was absolutely horrified. The British astronomer Bernard Lovell called it a huge gamble, arguing that no single nation had the right to perform these kinds of planetary-scale experiments without international agreement.
And you know what? Lovell was totally right. Van Allen had predicted the effects of Starfish Prime would last for maybe a year. But as you can see here, the artificial radiation belt stuck around for up to a decade. In Van Allen's own words, it hopelessly fouled up the scientific study of the very belts he had discovered. Talk about irony. So let's just recap the damage here. The electron intensity in that inner belt was raised by several orders of magnitude. That's huge. At least 7 satellites were completely destroyed by the radiation, their solar cells totally fried. It made space way more dangerous for astronauts. And after all that, the main goal of creating a missile shield never happened.
Okay, so even though these specific tests are, history, their legacy reveals a very, very modern threat to our technology-dependent world. Let's dig into that now. What these tests really gave us a terrifying preview of was the power of a high-altitude electromagnetic pulse, or HEMP. The specific part they were studying, called the E3 component, is this slow but incredibly powerful pulse that can have devastating effects on large electrical systems right here on the ground. It's a silent, invisible threat that could cripple an entire nation.
So here's how it works. The pulse from that explosion high above creates a voltage difference in the Earth itself. This then drives these things called geomagnetically induced currents, or GICs. And these currents, they flow up through the grounding wires of the electrical grid right into those really long transmission lines and then directly into the heart of the system, the big power transformers. And look, this isn't just theory. Based on analysis of old Soviet test data, a realistic peak electric field from an E3 HEMP over the continental US could be as high as 85 volts per kilometer. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but stretch that over the vast distances of a national power grid, and it adds up to a catastrophic amount of energy.
And a field like that, oh yeah, that is more than enough to cause some serious damage. In fact, studies show that a geomagnetically induced current of just 19 amps, which is less than what many of your appliances at home draw, is enough to cause mechanical failure and insulation breakdown in one of those massive power transformers. The very backbone of our modern world is surprisingly fragile.
When you look back, the story of James Van Allen and Project Argus is a huge cautionary tale, right? A brilliant discovery was instantly seen through the lens of conflict. It's a reminder that this temptation to control our environment on a planetary scale, what we call geoengineering now, is not new. The Cold War may be over, but these huge gambles, they continue. And so the question for us is, in our constant search for security, how do we stop ourselves from breaking the very world we're trying to protect?
Welcome to my channel, where you'll find over 2,000 videos on geology, geochemistry, AI, and many other subjects. If you like what you see, help us grow by subscribing, liking, and sharing this channel.
YouTube elimina la barrera de los idiomas. Ahora ya puedes oír los vídeos en tu lengua materna aunque estén en inglés. Sigue estos pasos sencillos. 1. Abre el video en YouTube que quieres mirar. 2. Haz clic en el icono de los subtítulos. Parece una pequeña CC, está abajo a la derecha del vídeo. Si los subtítulos están en inglés, haz clic en el icono de configuración, el engranaje, también abajo a la derecha. 4. Selecciona subtítulos y después elige traducción automática. 5. Busca y selecciona español en la lista de idiomas. ¡Listo! Ahora puedes ver y entender cualquier vídeo en inglés con subtítulos en español. Así, YouTube te ayuda a aprender sin importar el idioma original del video.
YouTube устраняет языковой барьер. Теперь вы можете слушать видео на своем родном языке, даже если они на английском. Следуйте этим простым шагам. 1. Откройте видео на YouTube, которое хотите посмотреть. 2. Нажмите на значок субтитров. Он выглядит как маленькая буква CC и находится в правом нижнем углу видео. 3. Если субтитры на английском языке, нажмите на значок настроек, шестеренка, также внизу справа. 4. Выберите «Субтитры», а затем «Автоматический перевод». 5. Найдите и выберите «Русский» в списке языков. Готово. Теперь вы можете смотреть и понимать любые видео на английском языке с субтитрами на испанском. Таким образом, YouTube помогает вам учиться независимо от языка оригинального видео.
I think these videos are brilliant, and I'm sure you will like them too. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to click the notification bell.